That is one area where Parliament, and I am a parliamentarian, and I'm going to be proposing improvement because we've learned lessons. Parliament did listen to Kenyans. And
did it listen to Kenyans or the president?
The president presentation to Parliament was the original draft tabled in the first reading in the House. That was the president's voice. Mm-hmm. The final version with 84 amendments was a combination of what the president or the executive, because it is also wrong to really say it is the president, because the executive is not just the president. It was a combination, a hybrid of what the executive had presented to Parliament and the views that Kenyans had presented. That is how we had total deletion of certain sections of the bill.
By the time Parliament passed that bill and was taken it to the president for final ascension to be an act of Parliament, Parliament was happy that it had done a good job, right?
Yes.
But Kenyans had said no to that, right?
See,
and Kenyans on the streets went to the president. After the president rejected that and returned it back to Parliament, what happened? The very same members of Parliament who had passed it clapped. Very good, Mr. President. Finally, umesikiza wananchi. Why could Parliament listen to wananchi in the first place?
I will use myself as an example. Because there is, again, a misrepresentation of facts. On the day that the president summoned invited parliamentarians to State House, all right, to make his decision known to Kenyans in regard to the Finance Bill 2024, as it had been passed by Parliament. I was not among the members of Parliament who went to State House.
Just
hold. In the debate in Parliament, it is not. You could see members of Parliament that belonged to the ruling coalition making dissent. You could see members of Parliament that belonged to the minority supporting. You could see independent candidates, members of Parliament elected as independents, also distributed on both sides.
Okay.
And that dichotomy then defeats the argument that there is a total capture of Parliament. Parliament should not be captured either by the executive or one section of society.
Okay.
Parliament has to be responsive. This Parliament did demonstrate its responsiveness in the 84 amendments. Unfortunately, the question of maybe between the amendments and the passage, should we have time then to engage Kenyans and bring them on the table and tell them, look, this is now what Parliament these are the decisions that Parliament has proposed.
Okay.
Do you still have more concerns that should come?
All right.
And those are the lessons and the improvements. Okay. That I'm saying the finance bill and the Gen Z protests have altered dramatically the way we run affairs in the country.
Yeah.
We can no longer ignore the voice of our young people and segments on society.
Yeah.
And on that area, allow me to make 3 suggestions. Number 1, and this is a key question, when we have a crisis over certain registration or over certain issues, should Parliament continue to sit, or should Parliament suspend business on the account of the issue that is causing the crisis, allowing time for further engagement?
You're suggesting
Number 2,
that?
Yes.
Okay, next.
Number 2, I am suggesting that in our standing orders of Parliament, we introduce a clause that allows Parliament to apply emergency brakes on legislation that is causing a lot of... is highly contentious. Okay? And then finally, the question of the architecture of money bills. Today, it is purely the constitutional prerogative of the executive to introduce money bills. Should we give constitutional power to Parliament to therefore have the power to become co-authors or become independent originators of fiscal frameworks in finance and in the budget? Should we have an independent parliamentary budget office that does forecasts and also conducts an impact assessment on the community when certain issues like taxation and certain laws are being passed?
So with those questions, obviously there are suggestions in terms of what you feel. And from your last submission, what I'm hearing you say is that Parliament, this Parliament, the 13th, is robust in terms of how it handles matters, and that it is not just a straitjacket approach to things. All right, I hear that submission, and I offer you August 2025, when the president of this republic accused members of parliament and so in this case National Assembly and Senate of taking bribes to the tune of 10 million shillings to pass a bill in one direction or another. Is that true? Are members of parliament bribed by whomever?
I will throw the gauntlet back.
No, it's a question I'm asking you. Are members of parliament bribed?
Is any institution in this country immune from bribery?
Honorable
The
Mathenge?
accusations have...
The accusation came
abounded.
directly from the president of the republic, whom has been accused of being the one of capturing parliament in the past. After his submission, members of parliament got their knickers in a twist and said, absolutely not, it's not us, it's not us. Where would he get this information from? The question is simple. It could be a yes or no. Are members of parliament bribed to make decisions in certain directions?
Are there members of parliament who are unduly influenced? Yes. What is the magnitude? If that happens, it is individual members of parliament. And we have suggested as parliamentarians...
Do they do this in isolation
those
when they are bribed?
Involved?
Do they do this in isolation when they're bribed? Nobody else knows about it. Mathenge's received 10 million shillings, allegedly, in a particular hotel somewhere. Does he do this in isolation?
No, you know, then when that happens, and I remember the president asking, a certain committee came for money, 10 million, I think he said. And he asked, did you get it? You know, parliament has to cleanse itself.
And stop taking bribes.
And definitely, absolutely. And number two, the committee, parliament must prevail upon the president to name the committee that took bribes.
Who's giving this money? Who's
Just,
bribing?
You know, the person giving you may not be able to tell. I would have expected that to be named. But the bare minimum, that committee that received the 10 million that the president spoke about ought to have been immediately disbanded.
Perfect.
All right?
Now, this is the problem.
And now,
I'm sorry, I'm going to hold you there so that we can go in a particular direction here. This person who took this money, that person ought to be, what did you say? The committee should be disbanded,
and
they should be
reconstituted.
Investigated.
Yes.
These people should go to jail. They should be...
Absolutely.
Okay, all of that should happen.
Yes.
Who is responsible for ensuring that this disbanding and all of investigating takes place?
Once the statement was made by the president, both the DCI, the three institutions, ESCC, DCI, and the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions should have immediately picked that up, commenced investigations, and we should have seen action by now.
But they didn't, and we didn't see action. They didn't, and we didn't see action.
Now,
did we hear Parliament again after August 2025, beyond the going to media saying it was not me, it was not me? Did we hear Parliament in the committee saying, you know what, guys? Because you talk about record on Hansard, right?
Yeah.
Did we hear Parliament come out and say, you know what, guys? This doesn't look good. Number one. Number two, was it you? Was it you? Number two, did we hear anybody from committees coming out and saying, you know what, this is a heavy indictment on us?
Parliamentary Service Commission,
PIC, PAC, did anybody come out and say, you know what? This doesn't look really good.
Yeah.
We need to actually form something that brings about the question. I'm going in the direction.
Yeah.
Whether it is the president talking about bribes that come out of the National Assembly and the Senate, whether it is members of parliament sitting in their committees and having conversations so that we can lead on to investigations about what the Auditor General says in terms of money that's missing, whether it is education funds that have not been sent, capitation hold up there forever, whatever it is, this is the same attitude in terms of reaction that you yourself, by your own admission, are upset about. We don't ever see that reaction. And that leads to the blanket statement about a captured parliament. Do you see how the puzzle fits?
I will still insist that a parliament that does engage and makes changes to a legislation that has originated from the executive, with robust debating, with dissension, with proposed amendments, with the dropping of certain clauses wholesale, that parliament cannot befit the description of being captive. But the structure...
Maybe Aseto can ask my question again so that maybe you can understand what it is that I said.
Let me put it this way. The President of the Republic of Kenya originates bills.
Yes.
Right? The bills come to the National Assembly.
Yes.
They come to the National Assembly, it is led by the leader of majority,
Yes.
who belongs to the president's party.
Yes.
Right? That means the president and the leader of majority had a discussion on this bill and on this finance bill and why it needs to pass, right?
Yeah.
With all the discussions that do continue and everything and the people pushing, the president comes and say, we want that bill to pass, right? We continue and we see this ends up to parliament, to the president. The president rejects it because Kenyans invaded parliament and said, you know what? Let it go back. But it is the very same president who says that parliament receives money from his office or from whichever point, right?
Yeah.
It is the very same person, the common denominator across board. Do you therefore see why today Kenyans are saying, even when we as mwananchi say no to specific bills that we feel do not represent us, feel parliament is captured because the person who originates the bill has just confirmed that money ends up to parliament.
And because there are lessons learned, and the common denominator of the president is in the structure of our constitution. We give the executive power to originate money
But
bills.
not power to bribe, though.
To originate money bills. The proposals then are processed and disposed of in parliament. In the disposal by parliament, what then happens when consistently there are changes to the draft that is eventually leaves parliament and is presented to the president for assent? It does show some level of independence. All right? And that is why I'm saying this level of independence may be what Kenyans are contesting. And therefore, I am proposing that do Kenyans just want to complain about this parliament?
No.
Or do they want to therefore further guide the conduct of business by parliament? Because they are the ones who have delegated the power to parliament.
Kenyans just want you to do your job. Kenyans want you to represent,
And
oversight, and to legislate. Kenyans want you to ensure that when you talk about public participation, it is not just to tick the boxes. Kenyans want you, when that bill comes, Nyeri town people want you to go back to them and ask them, hey, we have this bill, come let's engage. What are your views? And you go back to parliament and tell them, this is what my people say with regard to this bill. And because they have said no, it is not a question of 15 people representing 55 million people and you take that and say public participation did work. I'm sorry, but on that, Mr. Madenge, Kenyans are saying, I'm sorry, you're captured.
Dennis, I will tell you in my case, as a Nyeri Town Member of Parliament, witness can be borne by sections of Nyeri Town constituents. that whenever there is a bill that I feel has an impact, a high impact on them, sometimes I go to the extent of getting the bill printed and distributed in markets. I'll give you an example. The proposed legislation by Boni Halwale on regulating the border industry. The border riders in Nyeri can tell you, I had a copy of that bill presented to every shed of border riders and asked them, please interrogate and present. On a number of occasions, I will actually go on my social media pages and use the communicators from my communications department from my office to tell Nyerians, by the way, we are considering this bill. Please benefit us with your input. Parliament is a corporate body, but it is also made by individuals. Ultimately, every member of parliament will have to go back to the people who elected them in 2027 and seek to either get their contract renewed on the basis of their performance.
Okay.
It's the Nyeri Town constituents, the 80,000 plus voters, who will bring their verdict on how, as their member of parliament, I have performed in representation, in legislation, and in oversight.
The thing about this is that it's not a feeling. You can't romance it on a Tuesday morning and say, okay, well, today I kind of feel like it. It's constitutionally bound. And Parliament is not a favor to the executive. Yeah. Parliament makes part of the legislature, which is an arm of government constitutionally held in Kenya. Yeah. Judiciary, executive, legislature. So it is not how you feel.
Yeah.
It's what you're mandated to do. So when we see things like this happening, it's almost as though Kenyans are saying, well, we've delegated our responsibility to you, but that doesn't mean that you then take it, or rather delegated our sovereignty. That doesn't mean that you now take it and then sit at the whims of somebody else. I'm going back to my question. Why didn't Parliament, again, by your own submission, when you saw that DCI and EACC and whoever else was supposed to have asked the demanding questions of, because all money has a trail.
Yes.
Even the one that you remove cash and give somebody in the toilet, as people have told us happens, has a trail. So why didn't Parliament insist on this thing that was so damning? Went around the world, by the way. Yep. It's very rare that a president will come out and tell members of Parliament that you people are receiving bribes. It's an indictment of huge proportions.
Exactly.
So why didn't Parliament in those committees, again, insist, I'm going to an attitude that is through and through? It's not just this, Mavenk. It might come as a surprise to you. Why didn't Parliament insist that DCI, EACC, all the CCs and the IIs come out and ask who received money for bribes in terms of passing or rejecting of a bill that is your job? Why didn't that happen?
In Parliament, in the course of debate, after that the president's pronouncement, I may not offhand pick the day, but members of Parliament did pronounce themselves on the pronouncement by the president on the floor of the House. And there is a question we've been asking ourselves. Once Parliament, and this is one example, back in 2024, early 2024, or no, late 2023, I had a motion on betting. On betting. And the House did resolve that there was need for betting to be controlled. Yet, we have the Betting License Control Board. Once decisions of Parliament have been made, resolutions of Parliament has been made, we have a lacuna. In the sense that once those recommendations have been made, if they are not acted upon, what should happen? And this has existed up to the 13th Parliament. And these are the things I'm saying. Are there the lessons that we are learning? What are the actions that they are evoking?
Why didn't Parliament insist on EACC, DCI coming to ask further questions and carry out an investigation on the proclamation that was made by the President in August 2025?
Are you aware that according to the Constitution, the office of the DPP is independent?
Yes.
And this is the question. So the DPP goes and drops cases. Who, at what time, has at any one moment, as Kenyans, decided that this independence should not be this absolute, therefore
is this independence fortified or seen clearly in the law, the Constitution? Is it there? Because
in the Constitution,
is it in the Constitution?
It
the
is,
office of the DPP, for example, and the independence of this office and the functions of this office, are they clarified in the Constitution?
They are clarified.
So it's a law.
But the question
is it a law?
It's the law.
It's the law.
Yes.
Who legislates? Who legislates?
You know, number one, in the Constitution, the legislation was both parliamentally and directly by Kenyans through the referendum. And therefore, the responsibility of the content and the architecture of our Constitution, it is our responsibility, all of us. Because that is where we create the institutions that we call parliament,
the people
the
who
judiciary.
Activate this representation are members of parliament through the National Assembly.
The people who activate this legislation are Kenyans when they go to the vote and identify the person who goes to represent them.
And this person sits in sessions of parliament for the duration of that 5 years.
In Kenya, you must...
This person sits there continually practicing out this representation. That is my point. And you still have not answered my question. Based on that, you sit. I think perhaps, this person goes and sits and practices this representation on a daily basis. When you sit in the committees, when you sit in the plenary, when you do all the things that you need to do. So when you see things that are going in a direction that contravenes the spirit of that same constitution which gave you the delegated sovereignty and responsibility to do so, you cannot come and tell us that it's an independent office, that then we have no idea what will happen and we hope that they will do their job.
Question. I think
yes.
When the president made his pronouncement that members of parliament do receive bribes, it is expected that EACC, ODPP, DCI would move in and investigate, right?
Yes.
But I remember during that time on the floor of the House, members of parliament came and called out the president for calling them corrupt, right? But remember, like Ndu says, money has trail. There is the giver, there is the receiver. Parliament is said to be receiving.
Yes.
Executive says we are giving. Question is, at that point, Parliamentary Service Commission is in charge of the welfare of members of parliament. It is a question of credibility of a house that they oversee. We have not had anything from Parliamentary Service Commission. Members of parliament have not moved to ensure that their names are cleared. Members of parliament have not asked DCI to investigate. Members of parliament have not even asked the president to go record a statement so that investigations can start. One asks the question, everyone is talking, but there is no movement. So what is the responsibility of members of parliament, of Parliamentary Service Commission, to ensure that they present themselves as clean by presenting themselves to be investigated and ask the relevant bodies to come investigate? What stops Parliament from doing that?
Members of Parliament, when the president made that allegation, that pronouncement, they asked him to name. They asked him to name the parliamentarians. Because there is no way somebody is able to say, I gave Dennis has received 10 million. I am specifying it is on, what is the name of our show this morning?
The Situation Room.
It was in the Situation Room, during the Situation Room show. But I cannot be able to say who gave Dennis the money. Because I know. And therefore, when we talk about, when institutions fail to carry out their mandate And clearly in the constitution we have said that this institution is independent. It is not subject to be directed by anyone else. And these are the lacunas that I'm talking about.
But even in its independence,
Yes.
institutions can request for investigations
Yes.
to be undertaken. That is not direction. And that's where I'm going with it, because Parliamentary Service Commission would have invited ODPP or DCI to come investigate the allegations that have been given by the president. And the president, Parliament has powers than the executive.
By the
because
way,
it is Parliament that legislates, including the funding of the executive. Parliament would ask the president, I assume, to make clear his allegations, to record a statement with the ODPP, with the DCI, for investigations to start. What stops Parliament from taking that route?
Within Parliament, we have a committee known as the Powers and Privileges Committee. Now, that committee ought to have summoned the committee that those allegations were made against. The institutional weaknesses are what I'm saying. They are there. As Kenyans, do we just want to say we have noted these institutional weaknesses? Or do we want to offer further guidance to these institutions? Because we realize we have given them the mandate, but they have failed to meet our expectations.
Who
Should
now?
we
Parliament
further-
has failed. Or
Well,
whomever.
Why didn't EACC pick up? Or if it has picked up, why? The bribery to the Parliament. And if it has picked it up, why hasn't EACC, in its annual reporting, periodic reporting, announced to Kenyans that on this accusation, this is where we are? And therein comes the question that then, do we need another structure that would help us ensure that these bodies and institutions that have been created in the Constitution, when they malfunction, then what is the course or the direction that we ought to take?
I think one asks the question,
Yes.
has Parliament of Kenya today let down Kenyans on legislation, representation, and oversight? We talk about legislation because we talk about even Finance Bill 2024.
Yeah.
Legislation.
Yeah.
Kenyans said no. It passed anyway. Talk about representation. Every other time, a member of parliament, development, you got to beg the president to bring development to your area. Yet we know you can get that from the floor of the house. We talk about oversight. Every day, billions and billions and billions of shillings are being lost every day. Parliament, legislation, oversight, representation. Has Parliament of Kenya let down Kenyans?
I will say both yes and no. I will say no because there is no single legislation that I know of in the last 3 years that has been presented by Parliament and it has been passed in its original form without amendments. All right? I will say yes because Kenyans continue to express themselves, sometimes lightly, sometimes incorrectly, in terms of the perceived power that they believe Parliament exercises. And I have given you the example of the money bills. And I have even given suggestions on how I think Kenyans, to meet the expectations they have on Parliament, on matters finance, that then we can amend the Constitution and give Parliament more power on money bills. All right?
Yeah.
So my worry would be if this Parliament was not responsive at all and it is 100% conformist. The track record of the current Parliament is that there is no single bill that has been presented either by individual members of Parliament or by committees of Parliament or the executive through the office of the leader of the majority that has passed through parliament without changes being effected to it.
Okay. Well, our time has run out, and thank you for that. And I'm glad that you came this morning, because then many things have been made clear. And we look forward to continue this kind of discourse. The Member of Parliament for Nyeri Town is the Honourable Dan Mathenge. Has been here with us this morning. Asante Sana.
I want to thank you. I think today, when I saw the topic, I said, wow, this is deep. But I think today, has been one of the most engaging discussions that we have been in. You have been able to bring forth exactly how Kenyans feel and view their parliament. But I think I've also been able to present to Kenyans in a mini version a scorecard in terms of how to interrogate the work of parliament, but also proposed that there are structural weaknesses that we need to amend.
Of this, Kenyans will be the judge. Asante Sana. It's almost 2 minutes past 8. Good morning.
The latest news from around